Hello, my Jason. Always my anime review for Vampire Knights, the Studio Dean anime from 2008, which is based on a 2004 manga by Matsuri Hino. And we'll talk about much about season 2, Vampire Knight Guilty, in terms of specifics, but I'll definitely encapsulate that within this review here for the whole entire series in general, which is a pretty interesting series, which is, I would say, is pretty underrated, but at the same time, nothing as underrated in terms of this is a fantastic anime that everyone needs to watch. This is definitely a very Twilight-esque story here. If you're not a fan of Twilight, you're probably not going to like the way the storytelling is for this series. But if you're looking for that type of storytelling, the whole love triangle aspects, the sort of characters from a different world sort of thing, you have the humans and the vampires, those kind of aspects, the vampires in the series, they can be pretty bloody. That's why it's sort of Twilight-esque. They're not really the shiny, melodramatic type. There's definitely a lot of melodrama in this series, but the vampires, they can get pretty bloody, pretty ruthless at times as well. There's some pretty decent action scenes throughout the series here and there, and the vampires do have very interesting powers, and so it doesn't really go that romantic at times, but definitely a ton of romance, a ton of love triangles, loads of melodramatics thrown in throughout this whole entire series. The series is directed by Kyoko Sayama, who's worked on many storyboards throughout her career. Definitely check her out on my anime list, my Anime News Network encyclopedia. Definitely look up all of her work and her storyboard work on many anime. It's very great stuff there. The series is written by Mario Okada, which, if you don't know who Mario Okada is, probably watch more anime, I would suggest there, but you could definitely see her intricate types of storytelling, the melodrama, the way she writes characters as well, and really framing the story at times. This series, definitely you can see the influences from Mario Okada in her past works and her future works in this series here. The character designer is Asako Nishida, who's worked on Love Live School Idol Project, which it's pretty weird contrast there, but you can definitely see some influences here and there if you look really closely in terms of just the way the characters are designed, in terms of encapsulating their world. Very interesting stuff there. Also, she's also the animation director on Fate Stay Nights, the 2006 Studio Dean version of the Fate series, and so definitely a lot more of an in-house character designer there per se. But the series follows Yuki Cross, who is saved as a little girl by a vampire and Kaname Kuran, and they go to school together. And the interesting part about this school is that the school is split out into a day class and a night class. Day class is your human students at Cross Academy, and the night class is vampires. And Kaname is called a pure-blood vampire, basically no sense of humanity within him. His parents are both vampires, and that's why he's a pure-blood vampire. And Yuki has a crush on Kaname because of that incident there. It's a very vivid memory for her. And alongside her is Zero Kiryu, who together they form the student the disciplinary committee of sorts. They are the guardians of the school to make sure the day class is protected by the night class, making sure there's order between these between the human race and the vampire race, making sure there's order between them, and sort of keeping them divided so that they can eventually, someday at least, that's the dream of the headmaster, Yuki's father, to coexist with each other. That's what Kaname wants, and that's what the headmaster wants as well. And mostly Yuki is committed to the cause. Zero has his hesitations with vampires, not really a big fan of vampires. You definitely see that right away in the first episode, having a beef with the vampires for many various reasons, because his family was killed by vampires when he was a kid, and so lots of tragic memories there for him. But still, there's love triangle there with Yuki and kind of crush on Kaname, and so eventually all these other feelings do come across as well between Zero and Kaname towards Yuki as well. To describe the tone of the series for Vampire Knights, I would really describe it as a soap opera, sort of Shakespeare-esque sort of tone. Definitely a lot of traditional storytelling in terms of that Shakespeare soap opera model. You have the long dragged out plots per se, and lots of dragged out sort of scenarios with the characters, lots of slow scenes here and there, but when the scenes get to their high points, they're definitely very melodramatic, they're definitely very action-packed in terms of just things going on, lots of crazy things going on. You have all these intricate supporting characters as well, mostly from the Night Class and all the other vampires that sort of work for Kaname. In terms of like work, mostly just serve under him because he is a pure-blood vampire, so the top of the food chain type of vampire there. And so lots of intricate storytelling within that there. It's not only all that great, it's very vague sort of things. Like I said before, the vampires do have powers, but they're sort of vague in terms of explaining all that there. The world does feel lived in, but it does feel too lived in, mostly just keeping lots of secrets and lots of interesting things, like the vampires having powers, sort of the class system within this world. It's not really explained too much to my liking, and so that's my disappointment of the series and why the series can sort of struggle at times. Yuki is a very good main character. She definitely has a lot of character development within her, mostly in the second half of the first season and most of the second half, and sort of a little bit of the first half, mostly the whole entire second season, Vampire Knight Guilty. You get a lot more of Yuki and her character development, getting to her past and her coming to terms with her past as well. Again, won't get too much into spoilers there, but Yuki is definitely a lot more interesting main character towards, I guess I said before, counter-programming towards Twilight in terms of Bella and being a very bland protagonist. Yuki is a very interesting protagonist, very dynamic with her reactions and such there. Again, lots of Moe type of things in terms of Moe-esque traits and character reactions and such there, but still very interesting character dynamic with Yuki and the other characters in Kaname and Zero. And so, like I said before, not really the best series in the world, but a very interesting series nevertheless. A very underrated series in my opinion in terms of getting a lot more love and a lot more interest per se in terms of a romance, Shakespeare-esque soap opera type of anime. And so for rating for this series, giving this one a B-. Not really the greatest series in terms of getting into it. If you're not into the soap opera, love triangles, romance sort of thing, not a lot of action, but there's still a bit of action here and there. If you're not really into all that there, you're probably not going to like this series, especially not into these sort of cutesy vampires. Again, the vampires aren't really as cutesy as they are in Twilight. They do have some sort of edge towards them at times, but at the same time, they're not really like a Vampire Hunter D or a Hellsing type of vampire as well. More of a toned down, more of a shoujo type of vampire, since this is a shoujo series. The manga is pretty good as well if you want to read that. I've read a couple volumes of the manga myself, and so a very interesting story of interesting characters with a soap opera Shakespeare-esque tone and setting within this world that's very intricate with lots of interesting backstory to all the characters and interesting lore as well. Again, they don't get too much into it, much to my disappointment in terms of explaining the lore and explaining the world to the audience, but it's still pretty good nevertheless. And so, have you already seen Vampire Knights? What do you guys think about the series in general? Report all your thoughts in the comment section down below. Also, to like, share, and subscribe to my channel as well. Really helps me out. Really appreciate all of that. Thank you for your anime review for Vampire Knights. Hope you have a nice day. Bye bye.